And good evening. This is Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kanyuk, who was feeling a little, what was the term you used?
Salty is the term.
Salty.
A little extra salty.
A little salty.
It might get a little dry around here if we lick up my wisdom. Look out.
Well, there's another word for that. It's called cantankerous or big pain in the rear.
Well, all of those would probably accurately describe me.
Okay. All right. Well, if you'd like to join the show with your questions or your comments, input of any kind, be sure and call toll free. That's 855-244-0077 and 244-0077 if you're in the local Des Moines area. Now, I understand Ed Fallon will be back Monday.
No.
Sitting in this very chair.
What?
In this very chair.
He needs to go back out on his march. It got too cold. He marched too well.
I guess so.
Yeah.
What is the high going to be today? About mid-20s?
If that, I don't know. It's bloody cold out there. That's probably contributing to my saltiness.
Yes.
There's salt on the road now because
Yes.
we're going to get snow tomorrow.
Yeah, I had seen the stuff they spray down in advance. And, of course, as always, the lovely and talented Maddie producing.
Whose sodium intake is perfect.
So, play our first clip for us, and we'll get the show going.
These are hands.
You can't do it politically. You just literally cannot do it. Okay? Transparent financing, unless I have transparent financing, also transparent spending. I mean, this bill was written in a tortured way to make sure CBO did not score the mandate as taxes. If CBO scored the mandate as taxes, the bill dies. Okay? So it's written to do that. In terms of risk-rated subsidies, if you had a law which said healthy people are going to pay in, it made explicit that healthy people pay in and sick people get money, it would not have passed. Okay, just like lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really, really critical to getting the thing to pass. And, it's the second best argument. Look, I wish Mark was right. We could make it all transparent, but I'd rather have this law than not. So it's kind of like his reporter story. There's things I wish I could change, but I'd rather have this law than not.
How about maybe not lie to the American people? Okay, give us the second clip, Maddie.
MSNBC to say his remarks were spontaneous and careless.
The comment and the video were made at an academic conference. I was speaking off the cuff, and I basically spoke inappropriately, and I regret having made those comments.
It was off the cuff. He didn't mean it. But now tonight, more video has surfaced, showing that this was not the first time Mr. Gruber called the American people stupid in an off-the-cuff remark. In this next clip from, also last year, Mr. Gruber explains how Democrats played with the language of the Obamacare law so that it achieved their goals by, again, fooling the stupid public.
We said, well, that's pretty much the same thing. But why does it matter? I said, you'll see. And they were both in that passed. Because the American voter is too stupid to understand the difference.
Too stupid to understand.
Okay, Maddie, and then our final bit of wisdom from the also wise Nancy Pelosi.
We're not finished. Excuse me, I'm sorry. We're not finished getting all of our reports back from CBO, but we'll have a side-by-side to compare. But our bill brings down rates. I don't know if you have seen Jonathan Gruber of MIT's analysis of what the comparison is to the status quo versus what will happen in our bill for those who seek insurance within the exchange. And our bill takes down those costs even from now, and much less preventing the upward spiral. So again, we're confident about what we set out to do in the bill: middle class affordability, security for our seniors, and accountability to our children. Are you telling me I should have a drink of water?
Yeah, you're choking on your lies.
Well, just my one initial comment I want to get out there. My sister and I often debate this Nancy Pelosi. They used to have a gal that come on O'Reilly that Tanya Ryman, and she taught about gestures and things that give tip-offs to whether we're lying or not. And my sister thinks Nancy Pelosi's hand gestures don't match what she's saying because she stands in the mirror and over-rehearses it. I say she just don't know what she's talking about and is making it up as she goes.
I think it's the latter more than the former. If it were the former, then her hand gestures would match. If she were over-rehearsing, then everything would be too perfect. But that's beside the point. The point is Jonathan Gruber caught on video not once, not twice, 4 times, talking with glee about how the stupid American people were fooled into having this bill shoved down their throats. And actually, the American voters weren't that stupid because most people opposed Obamacare. I think it was over 50% did not want the Affordable Health Care bill to pass because maybe people aren't as stupid as they make them out to be. But it just shows you the arrogance of these people. And he doesn't care about, Jonathan Gruber doesn't care about lying to the American people. He thinks of himself as above the American people. All these people think of themselves as our oligarchs, our overlords. That's what it's about. It's about them thinking that they know what is best for us and telling us exactly what to do.
Well, a couple of things that come to my mind listening to Gruber: arrogant, pompous, pious.
Well, he admitted also in one of these later videos that Obama was in the meetings with them and that he was very, very interested in getting this thing passed and how the tax portion was going to be perceived.
Well, sure. I mean, they obviously had to lie, and I will use the word just in case Bill O'Reilly won't. And if anybody wants to link this broadcast up to Bill O'Reilly, you're welcome to do so. Bill, it's time for you to stand up and say Obama's a liar.
He's not going to do that.
Well, listen,
Bill O'Reilly's the biggest fraud on television.
He has took it up to the point of saying words like obfuscate, deception, he deceived. I mean,
Bill O'Reilly is there for the benefit of the big money so-called Republicans and for the actual stupid people who watch Fox News every day and believe everything that Fox News says, just like it's the flip side of the stupid people who watch MSNBC every day and believe everything MSNBC says. He's there to placate the Republican Party. Oh, he's a fraud. He's in on it. He sold out long ago.
Well, as I mentioned to you in another conversation, his big problem is he wants to bend over backwards and worry that someone might call him a right-wing loon, but they make fun of him on Jon Stewart. They make fun of him on Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert every night as being a right-wing loon. So what do you it's like Cheryl Atkinson. If you lose the access to the White House and they're peeing down your boot and telling you it's raining, what are you losing?
Well, that should show you also how much of a lack of credibility O'Reilly has. If he's that worried about people who have no credibility in the first place questioning his credibility, then what's he even doing there in the first place?
Well, he professes that he's a man of the people. He's a populist. He's a man of the people, and he wants to protect the folks. That's his.
I don't own a Lufta brush. That's all I'm saying.
That's his particular saying.
Let's get back to old Jonathan Gruber. He was on Frontline. Let's see. Back in 2012, he was interviewed by Frontline from PBS, and he told them that the Cadillac tax issue was addressed in 2009. He said Obama knew it was going to be a problem and that they all agreed to lie about it. From that interview in 2012, he said, "The next time I see him is summer 2009. The big issue there is that he really wants to make sure I'm moving forward on cost control. I think at this point he sort of knew we had a good plan on coverage, but he was worried on cost control. So we had a meeting in the Oval Office with several experts, including myself, on what can we do to get credible savings on cost control that the Congressional Budget Office would recognize and score as savings in this law. So how are we going to dupe the CBO?" And that was a meeting. It was a very exciting, once again, because the economists in the room all said the number one thing you need to do is you need to take on the tax subsidy to employer-sponsored insurance. We need 1 minute of background on this, or we need 1 minute of background on this. The way employer-sponsored insurance works is if you get paid in wages, you get taxed. If you get paid in health insurance, you do not. So this tax subsidy economists have been railing against for decades. It's super expensive. We forego about $250 billion per year in tax revenues. It's regressive. The richer you are, the bigger tax break you get. And then it comes to the point here where he says, now the problem is it's a political nightmare. And people say, no, you can't tax my benefits. So what we did a lot in that room was talk about, well, how could we make this work? And Obama was like, well, he is a really realistic guy. He's like, look, I can't just do this. He said, it is just not going to happen politically. The bill will not pass. How do we manage to get there through phases and other things? So how do we phase in Obamacare? And we talked about it, and he was just very interested in that topic. So there he is. He's admitting that Obama was in the room plotting with them about how we were going to implement this in phases and hoodwink the American public into this.
Well, I'm going to be the first to admit I'm not the smartest. I'm not the brightest bulb in the shed or the sharpest tool in the shed, but it doesn't take rocket science to figure out that if you're going to force the insurance companies to take on an extra 30 to 50 million uninsured, potentially with pre-existing conditions, that's not going to force the rates directly up for everybody else. And the insurance companies, and this goes out to my brother Ed Fallon, the bleeding heart liberal, or progressive as he likes to say, progressive populist with streaks of libertarianism. Companies never take it in the bottom line. They always pass it on to the consumer. And that's exactly what Gruber said is these companies will pass this directly on to the consumer. They knew full well what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Obama knew full well what was going to happen. But here's just, I don't know, maybe I like to oversimplify things, but it just looks like to me they could have saved themselves a whole lot of problem by just saying, hey, look, insurance companies, take on these people. And if your bottom line changes, we'll compensate you for your losses. That would have saved all of us a whole lot of wrangling, of losing your doctors. But see, that's the plan all along, is to cause you to lose your doctors. But see, this is going to force, there's studies that show out there that there is somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 50% of doctors who plan on retiring in the next 5 years due precisely to Obamacare.
And so all you're going to have left are the doctors who are just going to go along with exactly everything that the government is saying. You're going to have the less skilled doctors still in the workforce.
And there's already doctors out there who refuse to take Medicare and Medicaid patients as it is because the reimbursement rate is not up to the standard of what they should be making.
Do you realize, though, that under this bill, like, doctors have to check in with the centralized system to determine if and what type of health care you get? You basically have to punch in, a request to a system, and they come back with, okay, you can treat them. I mean, all these stupid women who say, who talk about abortion, how abortion is a right, and hands off my bodies and everything like that. You're gonna say hands off my body in that instance, but you're quite willing to give your health care up, because you have a semi-attractive black man in office.
Well, speaking of that, you just reminded me of something by mentioning I was watching prior to the 2014 election, they were interviewing a married lesbian couple in New Hampshire. And they were quite upset about Obamacare and what they were being forced to do. And the coverage is that they were forced, and they said, hey, neither one of us plans on getting pregnant.
Right, yeah.
So why are we forced to, in other words, make the people who want to be pregnant pay for it? Why do we have to pay for it?
I agree.
Why does an 80-year-old man have to pay for that type of coverage? Well, this has been Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kaniuk, and we'll return after the break.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places, especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart. And it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
The only way we come to know the Saviorship of Jesus Christ is by bowing and acknowledging that He is Lord and King over all the earth.
Jesus Christ died on a cross, paid the penalty for our sin, and by repenting of our sin and accepting Him by faith, what He did for us, we are forgiven.
Salvation is not a combination of faith and works. Salvation is by faith alone in God.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
And we're back with Frankly Speaking Live. I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kaniuk, and as always, Maddie producing. I guess I would just mention something here quickly before I get to the point you wanted to make about the DREAM Act and the Dreamers. This invariably will end up back in the Supreme Court before John four-dimensional chess player Roberts. And Gruber brought up that that they had to expressly lie. They had to expressly lie about it being a tax. And John Roberts actually kind of exposed him on that and kind of pushed the issue that he thought that maybe it might, I'm guessing he might have thought that maybe the voters were going to resoundingly toss Obama out by voting Romney in. And then that would cause the debate to happen all over again. But since Roberts went along with it being a tax, I wonder what the Supreme Court now will think when they watch TV and they see John Gruber on there telling that they played the country for saps. It was sold as interstate commerce under the Commerce Clause, and you would be charged a fee or a penalty if you didn't engage or you didn't buy in this. And we know the government can't force you, the federal government can't force you to buy something that you don't want. So they had to lie about it, but then they went out into Virginia and they argued it in a court of law out in Virginia as a tax. So I wonder what four-dimensional John will do with this when it hits the Supreme Court.
I don't know where this is coming from, this four-dimensional chess-playing John Roberts thing. I think you're giving him far too much credit. The guy has something in his past. The NSA is snooping on all these people. They confronted him with it, and they bought him off. That's just plain and simple. If you're telling me that he put that much of a gamble on Romney who this is where the Affordable Care Act started, was in Romney's Massachusetts, and that if you put that much of a gamble on Romney getting in office, then the guy is a flaming lunatic.
Well, all the hints that I was hearing coming out of the Supreme Court prior to that decision was that he did not want one of these controversial 5-4 decisions on it, and so he was trying to snooker somebody into a corner, thinking, yeah, okay, I'll go along with it as raising a tax because that's what it is. It's raising taxes. He basically said it's under the 16th Amendment.
He threw the country under the bus just so we wouldn't have a 5-4 decision.
Well, basically that's the hints that was being tossed out prior to the decision.
Then there should be people with torches and pitchforks outside of his front door.
But
I mean, seriously.
Somebody was, I don't know who coined the term four-dimensional chess player, but it was in some of the talking heads that were basically saying that he was trying to outmaneuver and outplay himself, and he ended up goofing the American people.
Well, that is the Republican spin on trying to keep face for John Roberts. That's all that is. Somebody got to John Roberts, plain and simple.
So
that's all there is
want to mention something about Obamacare?
Oh,
we'll be covering Dreamers.
Yeah, just a story I saw yesterday. Health and Human Services chief saying that Obamacare should be available for Dreamers, i.e. illegal aliens.
Well, explain to us what kind of an overview of the DREAM Act in case anybody doesn't know what we're talking about. It was something Obama done by executive order.
Well, the DREAM Act was legislation that did not pass, and so Obama passed it through executive order illegally. That should have been
well, what I mean
right
is
there.
it was for children of illegal immigrants who would go to college or enter the military, that they would have a quicker path to citizenship.
Right.
Okay.
So anyway, the Obamacare, well, it's also going to cover their parents too. So the Obamacare and immigration debates collided Tuesday as Health and Human Services Chief Sylvia Burwell called for extending Obama benefits to DREAM-eligible illegal immigrants. Burwell was speaking on a public Google Hangout with prominent Latina bloggers to promote Saturday's opening of the Obamacare enrollment period when she shifted to her thoughts on immigration reform. She said, "Dreamers are not able to be covered in the marketplace, and this is an issue that I think is more than a healthcare issue. It is an immigration issue," Burwell said in response to a question about whether families with mixed immigration statuses can get coverage. "And I think everyone probably knows that this administration feels incredibly strongly about the fact that we need to fix that. We need to reform the system and make the changes that we need that will lead to benefits in everything from healthcare to economics to so many things. A very important step that we need to take as a nation. Only legal immigrants are eligible for Obamacare benefits, but liberal and pro-immigration groups have asked that Obamacare benefits be extended to illegal immigrants as well. Several groups have also advocated for the Obama administration to mandate Obamacare exchange eligibility for Dreamers, a term used to describe illegal immigrants who are granted deferred action for childhood arrival statuses. So basically, if they have a kid in the U.S. while they're here, then they should be granted citizen status for just having a kid in the U.S. Burwell also addressed a recent Los Angeles Times report that found legal immigrants are avoiding Obamacare exchanges out of fear that any family members who are in the country illegally will be found out and punished thanks to their participation in the government program. In March, President Obama went on the Spanish-language TV network Univision to promise Latinos that any information gleaned during the Obamacare enrollment process would not be turned over to immigration officials. During the first open enrollment, outreach workers were encouraged to carry a letter from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement echoing that promise. But it seemed to only make most people more nervous. So our troops sitting in VA centers cannot get quality health care. Our returning veterans and everything. Our returning veterans are ostracized. Our returning veterans are demonized. The whole security apparatus is turned against returning veterans. But these people who are not in the country, don't pay taxes or anything, they should get health care.
Well, for any of you mindless liberals out there that just want to vote just because you want to vote for a Democrat, you want to vote liberal, how's the VA working for you?
They don't care.
Well, what I'm saying is this is what single-payer health care would be like. It just would be an overblown, expanded VA system, and if you think the VA is working well, then go for it.
I agree. I think the exact words that I used on this show were the VA is a microcosm of what to expect under Obamacare.
I mean, there's going to be long waiting lists. They lied and said that people saw doctors when they didn't. People died, literally died, waiting to get in to see a doctor. And Sarah Palin was accused of being a buffoon because she said there was going to be death panels. Well, you know, the reality of it is there's death panels now in the insurance industry, but it's going to be more of a blatant.
Right. And then it's going to get to the point when the dictatorship is fully out in the open that they're going to deny any political opponents health care.
Well, sure.
I mean, that's what this is all about.
And then you're going to arm not only the IRS with your fiscal information, but you're going to arm them with your medical information.
Exactly. This is about weaponizing healthcare against the American people, against anyone who opposes their will.
Well, I have an uncle who needs a couple of hip replacements, and you know, it's sad to say that I think what's going to happen eventually, they're going to say they're going to kind of try to balance your age and how long them hip replacements are going to
That's exactly
be good
what
for
they're going
you, and
to do.
they're going to determine, hey, you know, you're too old. You don't need those.
Right. This is the so-called utopian hellhole that they have planned for us. And then you have Bill Gates, you know, getting up there and trying to sound all trendy by saying, well, should we worry about providing health care for the elderly, or should we worry about funding more teachers? He's talking to a teachers union. Of course, they gobble it up. Oh, yes, kill the old people, kill the old people.
Well, the whole debate that Krauthammer says will kick the legs out from underneath this is the fact.
It's ironic for Krauthammer. Sorry.
That basically the idea that the government is giving people who can't afford this tax credits and et cetera, that was not legal. Mm-hmm. It wasn't written that way into the bill, and they tried to pawn it off as a typo. Well, we really meant this, but
it was just a typo. Sorry.
So he says basically, if those legs get kicked out from underneath the bill, the whole bill collapses.
Yeah.
On the state exchanges and whether the government can intervene and pay people on the state exchanges to compensate them for what this costs.
The thing that kills me is there's no outrage. There's no outrage amongst the American people about this. I don't know if they're probably just ignorant from it.
Well, but part of the reason why is because all these things that was going to hit and make devastating effects on the people's thinking has all basically been postponed until after the election.
Right. It keeps getting pushed back illegally, pushed back till 2015.
I mean, what gives Obama the right to think that he can write? He's wrote this or Congress come up with this illegal law. It ought to be Congress that goes back and revisits it.
Well, that's what it's supposed to be, but they're letting him run roughshod over every single law in the book.
And Obama just takes executive orders and, well, I want to suspend this for a while.
Right,
I want to stop this for a while. I want to postpone that for a while.
He's dictating the orders, and by definition, that makes him the dictator. I mean, that's just the English language.
As Krauthammer and I agree hand in hand, well, it would just be as simple to get a bullhorn and go up on the balcony of the White House and
that's what's coming.
Shout dictates from the balcony.
That's what's coming.
So did you have another thought on the Dreamers, that the parents were eventually going to be covered, or
they're going to cover everyone? They're going to use blanket amnesty, legalize all these people. And what's going to happen when amnesty is done? I mean, what's going to happen? What kind of outrage are we going to see from the American people? Are we going to see any outrage? Are we going to actually see a move to impeach?
I don't know. I doubt that very much, because I know it's good in theory that he needs to be impeached, but I'm telling you, the outrage amongst the black community would be so great in this country. I think it would put Ferguson, Missouri.
I don't think so, because you have been playing over the past several weeks all these videos about how the black community is turning against.
That's about 20% of the black That's about 20% of the black electorate. But the other percent is voting lock, stock, and barrel with this guy, and anything that happens that goes contrary to this guy is going to be pointed out as racism. And if you try to impeach the first black president, and they'll be saying, well, what, can a black guy screw up like a white guy? You know, I mean, I can see it coming right now, and the best I think they can hope for is just for the Congress to stand up and get their testicles and defund these individual little things inside the bill, like the tax on medical devices, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and basically try to take it out by a death of 1,000 cuts.
You just have to defund the whole thing. I had a thought on the amnesty thing just this morning, actually. Obama, I think, has to do this amnesty thing in order to cover himself.
Well, sure.
Because we all know, and I'm not saying that he was born in Kenya or anything like that. I think that they may have actually put that story out there just to deflect his true story. We know he was adopted by Lolo Sotero in Indonesia. When that adoption took place, he became an Indonesian citizen and was no longer an American citizen. You had to be solely an Indonesian citizen in order to attend school in Indonesia, which we know that young Barry Sotero did. The question is, did he give up his Indonesian citizenship when he came back to America? And all indications are no, he did not. He traveled to Pakistan in the 1980s when there were restrictions on U.S. citizens traveling to Pakistan. Why did he travel to Pakistan? Or how did he do it? Did it under
Well, it would be
Indonesian
simply
citizenship.
interesting to know if when he was in college he applied for student foreign aid.
Right. That's why the records are covered. He has to cover himself with amnesty.
This has been Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kanyuk, and we'll turn after the break.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Homs,
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
Lie down your day.
And we're back with Frankly Speaking Live. I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kanyuk, and Maddie producing. Again, I'll give out the call number if you'd like to join the conversation. That's 855-244-0077. That's toll free. And if you'd like to join the local Des Moines area, that's 244-0077. I want to hit a couple of things before we delve back into the political arena. A couple of things I posted this week. I write on November the 9th, as in the days of Noah, or as in the days before the flood, they ate, drank, married, and gave in marriage until Noah entered the ark, and the flood carried them away. So shall the coming of man be. Matthew 24:38-39. Some will say today, no cause for alarm. Continue on with your business, pleasure, planting, building, feasting, and merrymaking. These are those who keep rejecting God's laws and His word, and mocking His warnings and His messengers as fanatics until sudden destruction comes upon them, and there will be no escape. Then I would like to mention... A couple days later, let's all just pretend for a moment, including you atheists, that God and or some creator of all really exists. I think we'd all agree he'd have to have a vast intellect and mind. So let's put this into perspective. Researchers have told us that man at his best only uses about 10% of his brain power, and in my case, maybe 5%. So you and I, based on that pitiful amount, is going to sit in judgment or condemnation of God's sovereignty. I know most people are smart enough to know they didn't create this place and that we have to live by its rules. But no, many arrogant and pompous think they're smart enough to decipher God's work based on some infantile amount of facts. Hey, when you are standing on a place outside of this universe, maybe the great nebula behind me in the constellation Orion, be sure and wave and look in and let me know. Maybe, just maybe, you might know a drop of something. You see, you haven't found all the knowledge this universe and planet provides, but you're going to speak for the rest of the universe. Puny little man. Then this might get David and I going here a little bit, because we already bantered a little bit back and forth about it on Facebook. And I think he needs to get his eyes examined because he mentioned the word wild, and I used the word popular. I write, there's a popular notion going around that we are a nation manipulated by unseen forces to play team politics. And in the end, both our parties, Republican and Democrat, are really the same team. Sadly, it does feel that way many times. But the exception I take with this argument is there's a team out there that believes health care is a human right, that's anti-Second Amendment, who celebrates the death of the unborn, that endorses the destruction of the marriage institution, that worships the earth through climate change, and that seeks to legalize a, quote, high society, seeks to cause fear in blacks, women, and the elderly, that persecutes Christians and coddles criminals. Yes, maybe Dennis Kucinich or Bernie Sanders may stumble upon the right side of a particular issue, but the problem is if their team is in charge, you get the rest of their radical leftist agenda. So I tend to side more with Republicans, although they don't always get it all right, knowing full well that when there's a push to break down the wall partitioning church and state, my team may be leading the charge. But till then, I just find it hard to find common ground with quasi-socialists or outright communists. See, the left is godless, and one day they will, and the right one day will persecute the Christians. So it may well be the crap sandwich we've talked about on the show, but when that day comes to a choice between God and country, I will just say God won't lose. And then you want to respond to that?
The argument that the two parties should represent opposed ideals and policies, one perhaps of the right and the other of the left, is a foolish idea acceptable only to the doctrinaire and academic thinkers. Instead, the two parties should be almost identical, so that the American people can throw the rascals out at any election without leading to any profound or extreme shifts in policy. It's Professor Carol Quigley of Georgetown University, who wrote Tragedy and Hope, which was basically a study primer on what it is that they do. So yes, it feels that the Republicans and Democrats are the same sometimes because at the upper levels, they are the same. And the little fights that you have on the lower levels are just political football issues that are played as political theater.
I do realize that the same Goldman Sachs executives seem to get elected to the same positions in government no matter the party. And I will agree with you and concede that point. But how do you make compromise on people who like Bernie Sanders, who would like to outlaw guns, all guns in this country, versus people who are staunch Second Amendment? Where would you find common ground with somebody like Bernie Sanders on that issue? And if
you're not going to find common ground on that issue with Bernie Sanders.
But my point is that maybe on a particular issue he may have it right, but the problem is, like I was mentioning, if their side wins, you get you get the rest of their agenda, and the rest of their agenda is climate change, gay marriage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, going against the Second Amendment. You get health care. There wasn't one Republican that voted for health care. Now, maybe they done something behind the scenes that I'm not aware of, but there wasn't one Republican vote for health care. So where do you find common ground or compromise with these people? Now, I understand there may be puppet masters that's playing us all. I concede that's a possibility.
There was a Republican who voted for health care. His name was John Roberts, and it turned out to be the most important vote that there was.
Well, I'm talking about in the Senate.
The problem is looking at it as our side versus their side, and Republicans being our side and Democrats being their side. That's the problem. The problem is the two-party system. The problem is viewing it as a team sport and us versus them mentality. Well, you can't keep doing that because Lindsey Graham and John McCain are not on my side, just as Elizabeth Warren and Dick Durbin are not on my side.
Okay,
I lump all those people together.
About 60% on a good election of the nation's population votes. So, if you have a two-party system, the person that wins the presidency is going to garner about 50% of that vote, or a little higher, 51, 49, whatever. If you got multiple candidates or multiple parties, that dilutes that pie even further. So do you want 10% of the populace making rules and voting for the rest of us? Do you want 20%? Do you want a three-party system where 30% of the people, 33 1/3% of the people vote the presidency in? I mean, Bill Clinton, because of Ross Perot, I believe is the first president in history, I think, who got put in with less than 50% of the vote. He got about 42, 43% of the vote because Ross Perot got 19% in that first go-around. So I guess what I'm saying is, and the more parties you would put in that, do you want 25% of the people making the rules? How would you?
We don't have to worry about 25% because theoretically anymore we don't have a dictatorial presidency. So we have this body called the Congress, which is the representatives of the people. This is essentially the people in Washington. Despite what Barack Obama says, that Congress doesn't represent people, yes, they do represent people. That's why they're called the House of Representatives. So you keep the people, you keep the CEO of the company, so to speak, the President of the United States, in check by electing the board members who are the House of Representatives to be your voice.
I agree with you. That's right. But what I'm saying is if you're ever going to have a legitimate third party in this country, they're going to have to stand on some sort of platform. They're going to have to vote in their own governors. They're going to have in their own senators, their own congressmen, so that they can caucus with themselves and not, I mean, just like this Greg Orman, he's hedging his bets. If he beats Pat Roberts, he's going to caucus with the winner. Now, Joe Biden said he was sure that he was going to caucus with the Democrats.
I don't care. I mean, I would say eliminate all parties and just have individuals running. I mean, I've said this a number of times on the show previously. What would politics be like if we didn't have the little R or the D next to the person's name? and you were just forced to listen to what the person was saying. It'd be a whole different ball game.
Well, I just wish that, I guess if I could have my perfect world, the people inside the parties would vote their conscience irrelevant of what initials next to their name.
They're not going to do that because they're controlled from the top by the same people who control the other party. And that's the bottom line. I mean, if you didn't have the little R and the D, you wouldn't have an idiot like Terry Branstad getting elected so many times.
Okay, so do you have some stories? We have about 15 minutes for the rest of the show, and do you have some stories that you want to hit hot and heavy?
Oh, boy.
Because you came in salty.
I'm salty. All right, let's start. Obama admits that the ISIS strategy is about deposing Assad, which I have said numerous times. The Obama administration has officially conceded that the military effort in Syria is not about attacking the Islamic State. It is about removing Assad from power. The new strategy formed by Obama's national security team ignores the fact that Assad and the Syrian military represents the only tenable opposition to the Islamic State, which is funded by the U.S., and other Islamist groups funded and trained by the United States and its partners, most notably Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey. Employing convoluted logic, the administration argues that the long-running Syria problem is now compounded by the reality that to genuinely defeat ISIL, we need not only a defeat in Iraq, but a defeat in Syria. ISIL, short for the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, is an acronym the government uses for Daesh, al-Dawla, al-Islamiyah, al-Iraq, al-Sham, or the Islamic State. The initial plan, described as Iraq First, concentrated on attacking the Islamic State in northern Iraq, where it defeated the U.S. trained and armed Iraqi army and captured a large ground of territory. The administration is reportedly jettisoning this strategy in favor of directly targeting the Syrian government. So they've been after Assad for years and years and years. They put their little puppets in Syria as an excuse to topple that government and bring them under a centralized banking system, just like they've done in numerous other countries. So that fraud is fully out in the open. It's not about attacking terrorists. It's just about removing Assad through another means. They couldn't pin the chemical weapons attack completely in 2013 on Assad. Now they're going with this route. We got more coming up.
We'll be back after the break, and this has been Frankly Speaking Live with your host Frank Holzhauser and co-host David Canuck, and we will return shortly.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
Metro Ford's on everywhere. Metro Ford's on everywhere.
See 'em here, see 'em there. You got bad credit? We don't care.
Metro Ford's on everywhere. Metro Ford's on everywhere.
Visit emetroford.com for your guaranteed credit approval. Good credit, bad credit, no credit. Everybody drives with guaranteed credit approval at emetroford.com.
Metro Ford's on everywhere.
Visit emetroford.com today.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Frankly Speaking Live. I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kanyuk. And
are we ready for Attack of the Salt?
The salty one has the floor.
By the way, I'm available for any radio ads that you might want to do. Maddie says I should do all of Webcast One's ads. I think I could be a good stand-in for Mac. Listen, chat, watch Webcast One live. That's my poor Mac impersonation.
Or Randy Macho Man Savage.
Ooh, yeah. That's about all I can do for Randy. Yeah. All right, what do we want to cover here? Anything on the last story that you wanted to comment on before we jump in? All right.
Continue on.
Earlier this week, top hacker, Chicago nuke attack planned for 2015. Guccifer, the Romanian hacker who accessed private email accounts of numerous top government and military officials, as well as the Bush family, is quoted in the New York Times as predicting a nuclear attack on Chicago sometime in 2015. He said, according to the New York Times article, before agreeing to answer any questions from the New York Times in prison, where he shares a cell with 4 others, including 2 convicted murderers, he read out a lengthy handwritten statement that he said explained the purpose of his hacking. A potpourri of conspiracy theories about the terrorist attacks of 9/11, 2001, the 1997 death of Princess Diana, and alleged plans for a nuclear attack in Chicago 2015. It said, this world is run by a group of conspirators called the Council of Illuminati. Very rich people, noble families, bankers, and industrialists from the 19th and 20th century. And that whole long article, that is all that they said about what he found. They wouldn't publish what his manifesto was. They wouldn't dig deeper into any of these things. I mean, this guy is confirmed to have hacked into accounts like George W. Bush. This is how we found the little self-painting portraits that he had painted, akin to Adolf Hitler's pursuits. He's confirmed to have hacked into Colin Powell's email address. So the guy actually got into these email addresses, got legitimate information, but the New York Times just glosses over this. They downplay this by throwing the word alleged out there, and of course filing it under the PSYOP term conspiracy theory. So, I mean, this guy got in all these systems, so you think that you should take him seriously and maybe kind of question him about what they would want to do, but just more proof that you can't really listen to the New York.
My initial thought on that is, if that's true that people's systems are being hacked into, what's that portend for our healthcare system when they're running around with all our financial information plus our medical records, and how safe are those going to be?
They're not going to be. They're not going to be. There is going to be at
up for sale to the highest bidder.
Exactly. There is going to be at some point a massive. It's going to be sold as a data breach. That's going to affect the banking industry. That's basically, they're going to try and eliminate the password feature that we've all done. They want to have biometric passwords. It's just all leading up to the mark of the beast. Next story. This was from stevequail.com. Somebody sent in, military is barred from phone, text, or email communications. Troops are being used as Ebola orderlies. Last night I was listening to Aaron Klein's radio broadcast, and a woman caller said that her son is one of the 4,000 U.S. military who were sent to Liberia to fight Ebola by the current White House occupant. Her son told her in the one and only phone call that he managed to make since his arrival there that the troops are serving as hospital orderlies. They have been ordered to empty patients' bedpans and change filthy bed sheets infected with urine, vomit, and fecal matter. He never said anything about how the troops are building clinics for new Ebola patients, just emphasized what his mission to fight Ebola really is. And there is a blanket prohibition on all our military in that area against any phone, text, or email contacts with anyone back home in the States, i.e. they are forbidden to tell friends or family what they are being forced to do by this disgusting weasel playing CIC on TV. So there you have it. I think what they're trying to do is a repeat of the Spanish flu outbreak in 1918, which started on military bases because troops were coming back home from Europe, and it was an outbreak in military bases first, and then spread out.
Well,
from
where's
there.
our fearless CDC czar?
Well, the CDC czar, the Ebola czar.
Or Ebola czar.
Yeah, all he did was come in to try and shut down the press reporting on Ebola cases.
So now you heard that the what was the gal's name who wouldn't self-impose quarantine herself finally has been cleared?
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, she's finally been cleared after the 21 days, so she doesn't have Ebola. Whoop-de-doo.
But do you think it should be left to their decision to self-quarantine or not?
No, absolutely not. Well, first off, they should stop any of these flights coming in that are originating from West Africa. They just need to seal it off. That's how other African countries have stopped the spread of Ebola, by closing off people coming in from Liberia and all these other affected
Australia
nations.
has cut all flights off from, I think I heard. From,
But the Center for Disease Creation is doing everything that they can to bring people here. I've heard that a third Ebola patient has been flown into Nebraska. I've heard that they're monitoring people in Des Moines, Iowa for Ebola.
Supposedly the other day on some network, I heard we were declared Ebola-free here in the United States.
I don't know if that's for sure or not, because they are disappearing people. Dr. James Lazari, I might be butchering his last name, out of Kansas City, confirmed that they are disappearing people. They had a case of somebody with Ebola that came into Kansas City during the early go of this thing. CDC came in. The guy was gone the next night. They couldn't find him anywhere. They have no idea where he went. And then they were told that, oh no, the guy didn't have Ebola. This guy had malaria. Even though the guy was bleeding out, and malaria doesn't have symptoms where they bleed out. So you're going to see a lot more malaria cases coming up here. California nurses strike ahead of larger protests over Ebola measures. Nearly 20,000 nurses went on strike in California on Tuesday over patient care issues that include what their union views as insufficient protection for nurses who may care for patients stricken with the deadly Ebola virus, in a prelude to broader national protests expected on Wednesday. So our whole healthcare system is going to collapse, potentially, due to Obamacare. And this broke yesterday. Americans' cell phones targeted in secret U.S. spy program. The Justice Department is scooping up data from thousands of mobile phones through devices deployed on airplanes that mimic cell phone towers, a high-tech hunt for criminal suspects that is snagging a large number of innocent Americans, according to people familiar with operations. The U.S. Marshals Service program, which became fully functional around 2007, operates Cessna aircraft from at least 5 metropolitan area airports with a flying range covering most of the U.S. population, according to people familiar with the program. They're doing everything that they can to turn the so-called security apparatus to spy on you, the American people.
Well, yes, Cheryl Atkinson, I believe, was saying that much, that they were spying on her Skype.
Right, they're spying on their Skype.
They was using her Skype to spy on her even when it wasn't on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if this does not show you that this government is falling under full-blown tyranny, then I don't know what does. What more do you want? They're spying on every communication. What free republic does that? Answer is none of them. They don't.
Well,
and then Obama apparently is set to announce amnesty next week.
Well, I don't know. I guess I can't say with no authority what's going to happen, but I just have a feeling that we're going to have an outright civil war in this country if he pulls the trigger on this mass amnesty program.
I agree. I don't know if amnesty is going to be the thing to kick it off, but there has to be some sort of protest taken. My advice is to go to your payroll department and tell them to stop pulling out taxes from your check. If we have a mass movement to stop paying income tax, that's going to send a clear message.
And they'll be polishing up the prison cells.
Look, we either all hang together or we all hang separately, but you got to fight this now, because if you don't, it's gone. It's over. We're hanging by a thread, ladies and gentlemen. Do you want to lose that thread or not?
Well, this has been Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kanyuk, and Maddie, of course, producing. And join us again next week at this same time, and we'll be back.
On Webcast One, live!